something that makes it truly fascinating, and it sheds a little bit more light onto how Niantic was able to accomplish this, maybe, is the origins of the company. And I didn't know this, so this was new information for me. So a little background on the company Niantic. It was actually founded by a man named John Henke in 2001. It was originally known as Keyhole Inc., and Henke had previously worked for the U.S. government in foreign affairs. And what makes this story really interesting is where some of the early funding for Keyhole came from. It came from InQtel, which is actually the venture capital arm of the CIA. And this geospatial technology was very significant. It gained significant attention in the early 2000s and the Iraq War. And basically, this is the technology that was the foundation once it was acquired by Google. That led to like Google Earth and Google Maps and Street View, and then Henke established Niantic Labs as an internal startup within Google. What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the AI Marketing Navigator. This is your daily compass in the ever-evolving world of AI marketing. Okay, navigators, I have another episode that I am super excited to record today, and I get to introduce an entirely new model to you. Well, maybe not to some of you, but if you're like me, you never have heard of it before. We've talked about large language models. We've talked about large behavior models. Today, we're talking about large geospatial models. And this is a model coming from Niantic, of all places. If you've ever played a little game called Pokemon Go, or if you remember something called Pokemon Go, this is the company behind Pokemon Go, Niantic. And if you've also been playing Pokemon Go, you have unknowingly been helping to train one of the most sophisticated AI models ever created. So, with that, let's go ahead and dive in. Niantic, the company behind Pokemon Go, has been collecting and processing over 30 billion images and other data points from players worldwide since Pokemon Go launched. They're using this huge amount of data to develop what they call a large geospatial model, an LGM. You can think of it as an AI model to map the world around a certain reference point. And we talked a little bit about geospatial models and world models on the show before. We talked about, again, behavior models, large language models. But with large language models, they're processing text and they're predicting really the next word. An LGM, a large geospatial model, is processing the physical world around us using multiple geographical data points, geospatial data points, and the scale of the data that was collected and that's being collected and it will be applied in these models is what's truly incredible. We're talking about models with trillions of parameters operating across millions of locations around the world. So let's break down how this technology is actually working a little bit in a way that's a little bit easier to wrap our heads around, and it also involves the brain of all things. So you can imagine your own brain in the way we process images. You can look at like a side of a building, for instance, or a house, and you can kind of picture in your mind what the back side of that building or house, what the rest of that building looks like, even maybe what the inside of that building would look like, depending on your understanding of the model or of what that building what its purpose was. This is kind of how an LGM works. A large geospatial model can predict unseen aspects of locations based on partial observations or very detailed observations of several data points through its neural networks. It's just a huge amount of data. Things like, again, satellite imagery, aerial photography, GPS devices, which is where Pokemon Go comes in, and ground-based measurements as well. But what makes it truly world-changing is just the model, the world model. It can transfer knowledge between similar locations globally. So again, just like these large language models kind of learn and they can predict based off of context, so can these large geospatial models. So the AI learns about a structure, maybe a Starbucks in Seattle. It can then apply that understanding of that physical location to recognize and predict other locations in the world and that are coffee shops and other coffee shops around the world, whether it's London or Tokyo or wherever. It's creating a predictive model for geospatial data. And again, the scale of the tracking and the data gathering that's been going on to build this model by Niantic is truly mind-boggling. Apparently, the game tracks user locations every 5 seconds, GPS locations, creating this incredibly detailed digital map and layout of the world. And again, they have global players. They've been collecting this data for so long, and they have so many players collecting this information for them. And that's what makes it, you know, truly powerful, and it's also what has some privacy and data privacy people up in arms with, rightfully so. I did not happen to play Pokemon Go, so I can't attest to what was in their terms and policies and so forth. I hope that they were somewhat transparent about this. We always stress transparency, but who knows? That may be yet to be determined. But something that makes it truly fascinating, and it sheds a little bit more light onto how Niantic was able to accomplish this, maybe, is the origins of the company. And I didn't know this, so this was new information for me. So a little background on the company Niantic. It was actually founded by a man named John Henke in 2001. It was originally known as Keyhole Inc. And Henke had previously worked for the US government in foreign affairs. And what makes this story really interesting is where some of the early funding for Keyhole came from. It came from InQtel, which is actually the venture capital arm of the CIA. And this geospatial technology was very significant. It gained significant attention in the early 2000s and the Iraq War. And basically, this is the technology that was the foundation once it was acquired by Google. That led to like Google Earth and Google Maps and Street View, and then Henke established Niantic Labs as an internal startup within Google. And then, as many of you likely know, Niantic spun off of Google in 2015, and the rest is basically Pokemon Go history. So I just found that really intriguing. The history and the backstory of the company behind Pokemon Go was really fascinating to me. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about what these large geospatial model could mean for businesses and consumers and marketers, because this technology isn't just about catching Pokemon and playing games, although it's going to again have huge implications in that field, obviously. But we've discussed all the different applications that this technology has, as far as augmented reality and it goes, and virtual reality and augmented reality experiences. We've also talked about how big of an opportunity they present for marketers and businesses. And when you combine the technology, this geospatial technology, with the future of AR wearables, like the AR glasses that we talked about, you those sci-fi futurism episodes that we were talking about, where people are walking around with their AR glasses in every single store, everything is mapped out and can be personalized to them. We're talking about incredibly personalized AR experiences in the real world for individual customers, and all the pieces are really starting to come together for that to become a reality. And it's not hard to see the business applications here, but as with most AI technologies, it's the societal applications and the implications that are for society that are probably the most fascinating and the most intriguing. I mean, this technology could revolutionize environmental monitoring, disaster management for natural disasters, tracking and prediction of storms and things like that, all of these things. But of course, there is a downside to all of this too. When you think about the amount of data tracking and gathering that was done by Niantic using Pokemon Go, and if you think about whether or not that was done transparently, again, I'm not sure quite about all the details of that, but you apply these thoughts to large geospatial models in general and how they collect data, the privacy concerns become significant and numerous very quickly. You're talking about a certain level of personal data as far as location goes and literal physical movement, and you really get into some, when it comes to unauthorized access and security risks. That's a lot of very personal physical data to have on someone. And there are many critics of Niantic saying that the Pokemon Go data collection was not very transparent, and many people didn't realize that they were contributing to vast AI training data sets. And again, here we get into that fine line between personalization and privacy invasion. How are we going to use these opportunities for geospatial mapping and targeting literally where someone is potentially moving throughout the world? It gets, the implications are pretty powerful. So, as always, proceed with caution and do what's right for the customer and the consumer and privacy. It's maybe not going to give you the quickest gains in the short run, but it's always going to pay off in the long run. And that's always been our belief here at the AI Marketing Navigator, for sure. I mean, you're talking again about, you're not just tracking where people are going, but what they're looking at, how long they're looking at it, how long they stay in certain places, their daily routines, and it just becomes really concerning really quickly. Uh, so it's clear that we as marketers, especially, are at kind of a crossroads again, and this is a societal crossroads also. How are we going to use this AI technology in the right way? How do we get as many benefits as we can from this technology while still ensuring that we have strong privacy protections and transparent data practices? It's a huge challenge, and it needs to be of an utmost concern. So, for marketers, continue to think about how we can use these new AR experiences and technology ethically, how we can integrate it into our marketing campaigns in a way that's non invasive and truly helpful to our customers. Okay, so I think we're good. So it's easy to scroll down here. And you can start selecting any content and everybody in an episode drops. So until next time, and as always, thanks for joining me. And remember to stay curious, stay consistent, and keep navigating forward.